Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Vajajanharanjana. Yashodanandana Vajajanharanjana. Yamunatira Vanachari. Yamunatira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Shri Radha Radhanath ki jai, Shri Giriraj Govardhan ki jai, Shri Gaura Hari ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Premanande. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naran Shaivam Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayat Shrinvata Swagata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtanaha Hridiyantasto Hi Apadrani Vidunoti Suritsatam Nashtaprayeshu abhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttama shlokir bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. Hare Krishna. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 4th Canto, Chapter 23, Maharaj Prithu's Going Back Home, text number 8. Tena kramanusitena dvasta karma malasaya pranayama saniruddha sadvargaschina bandhanaha tena kramanusitena dvashta karma malasayaha pranayama saniruddha sadvargaschina bandhanaha tena kramanusidena dvasta karma malasayaha pranayama saniruddha sadvargaschina bandhanaha. Tena kramanusidena dvashta karma malasaha pranayama saniruddha sadvargaschina bandhaha tena kramanusidena dvashta karma malasayaha pranayama saniruddha sadvargaschina bandhanaha. Tena, thus by practicing such austerities, krama, gradually, anu, constantly, siddhena, by perfection, dvasta, smashed, karma, fruitive activities, mala, dirty things, ashaya, desire, prana ayamai, by the practice of pranayama yoga, breathing exercises, san, being, niruddha, stopped, satvargaha, the mind and the senses, Chinnabandhanaha, completely cut off from all bondage. Translation. By thus practicing severe austerities, Maharaj Prithu gradually became steadfast in spiritual life and completely free of all desires for fruitive activities. He also practiced breathing exercises to control his mind and senses. And by such control, he became completely free from all desires for fruitive activity. Purport. By His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The word pranayama is very important in this verse because the Hatha yogis and Ashtanga yogis practice pranayama. But generally, they do not know the purpose behind it. The purpose of pranayama, or mystic yoga, is to stop the mind and senses from engaging in fruitive activities. The so-called yogis who practice in Western countries have no idea of this. The aim of pranayama is not to make the body strong and fit for working hard. The aim is worship of Krishna. In the previous verse, it was specifically mentioned that whatever austerity, pranayama, and mystic yoga practices Prithu Maharaj performed were performed for the sake of worshipping Krishna. Thus, Prithu Maharaj serves as a perfect example for yogis also. Whatever he did to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. The minds of those who are addicted to fruitive activity are always filled with unclean desires. Fruitive activities are symptomatic of our polluted desire to dominate material nature. As long as one continues to be subject to polluted desires, he has to accept one material body after another. So-called yogis, without knowledge of the real purpose of yoga, practice it in order to keep the body fit. Thus they engage themselves in fruitive activities, and thus they are bound by desire to accept another body. They are not aware that the ultimate goal of life is to approach Krishna. In order to save such yogis from wandering throughout the different species of life, the Shastras warn that in this age, such yogic practice is simply a waste of time. The only means of elevation is the chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. King Prithu's activities took place in Satya Yuga, and in this age, this practice of yoga is misunderstood by fallen souls who are not capable of practicing anything. Consequently, the Shastras enjoin, Kalo nasteva 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 gatiranyata. The conclusion is that unless the karmis, jnanis, and yogis come to the point of devotional service to Lord Krishna, their so-called austerities and yoga have no value. Naraditaha. If Hari, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is not worshipped, there is no point in practicing meditational yoga, performing karma yoga, or culturing empiric knowledge. As far as pranayama is concerned, chanting of the holy name of the Lord and dancing in ecstasy are also considered pranayama. In a previous verse, Sanat Kumar instructed Maharaj Prithu to engage constantly in the service of the Supreme Lord Vasudeva. Yat para pankaja palasha vilasha bhaktya karmashayam gratitam ugratadyanti santa. Only by worshipping Vasudeva can one become free from the desires of fruitive activities. Outside of worshipping Vasudeva, the yogis and jnanis cannot attain freedom from such desires. Tadvan narikta matayo yatayo piruddha shroto ganastam aranam bhaja Vasudevam. Srimad Bhagavatam 4:20-39. Here the word pranayama does not refer to any ulterior motive. The actual aim is to strengthen the mind and senses in order to engage them in devotional service. In the present age, this determination can be very easily acquired simply by chanting the holy names. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschacha Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. By thus practicing severe austerities, Maharaj Prithu gradually became steadfast in spiritual life and completely free of all desires for fruitive activities. He also practiced the breathing exercises to control his mind and senses, and by such control he became completely free from all desires for fruitive activities. Hare Krishna. Before speaking, as always, I ask the blessings of the Vaishnavas. I pray that whatever I share today is in line with what Srila Prabhupada presents in his books and is also pleasing to the hearts and mind of all the Vaishnavas. So, leading on from yesterday's purport, today's purport is also touching on the glorification of the holy name, of chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. And it's very apt, I think, because today is the very auspicious day of Ratha Yatra. If you have time, please do watch online. And yesterday was Gundicha Marjana, the cleansing of the Gundicha temple. And we know from the Chaitanya Charitamrita how Srila Prabhupada speaks about it's not just the external cleansing, it's the internal cleansing. This is why we chant. the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra for the purification of the heart. Cheto Darpana Marjanam. Right? So leading on from yesterday, very beautiful purport on the importance of the holy name. And we see in the purport, Prabhupada is very, I wouldn't say he's being very heavy, but he's being very straightforward. And that the aim of our yoga practice, whether, he speaks about the Hatha yogis, the Ashtanga yogis, but then he speaks about Bhakti Yoga. The aim is not to be externally fit and strong, right? It's not about the externals. There's a very beautiful line in this purport. Prabhupada says that whatever Maharaj Prithu did, he did to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. So the aim of everything we do in life is worship of Krishna. Whatever Maharaj Prithu did was only for that. And that, I thought, right at the beginning, that is a very beautiful meditation for us to take from this verse. That Maharaj Prithu lived a life of spiritual intention. Whatever he did, he knew what he was doing it for Krishna. So that's something that maybe we can take away right at the get-go. Spiritual and material life, whatever I'm doing, who am I doing it for? What is the intention behind my action? What is driving my desire? Because later on, Prabhupada, when he moves on in the purport, he speaks about fruitive activities and the desires, the unclean desires in the minds of people, right? So right at the get-go, whatever I'm doing in life, who am I doing it for? What am I doing it for? And what do I expect out of what I'm doing, right? So we can understand that the process of bhakti yoga, is a very intentional, very deliberate process. Like I said, Maharaj Prithu has lived a life of spiritual intention. And this verse today is sharing the result of Maharaj Prithu's austerity of his intentions, right? Maharaj Prithu, the translation says, gradually became steadfast in spiritual life and completely free of all desires for fruitive activities. But that first part especially, he became steadfast in his spiritual life, right? And we see this, that when we move with the right intention in spiritual life, it should make us very steady people, very reliable, very intentional. When we move in the world with a deeper spiritual intention, no matter what happens, we are steady in all situations in life and in all circumstances, right? Because from this deeper spiritual intention, we are operating from a foundation of spiritual knowledge, of Shastra, and that ideally keeps us steady through all situations and circumstances, no matter what happens in life, right? And then the translation goes on to say that Maharaj Prithu, he also practiced breathing exercises to control his mind and his senses, and by such control he became completely free from all desires. So yes, pranayama, this is I guess it's a growing term in today's yoga culture, pranayama, right? But we know from the Shastra that, yes, pranayama is, a legitimate practice. It is part of the Ashtanga yoga system. You get yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, and then 4 others, dharana, dhyana, forget the 7th one, and then samadhi, right? Ultimately, that is the true process of Ashtanga yoga, that the goal is samadhi. And what is samadhi? Complete spiritual absorption in the Lord. Again, the intention behind everything you do is to just worship Krishna and be absorbed in that. So, yes, the true process of Ashtanga yoga, if I could say that, the original Ashtanga yoga, right? It is inherently spiritual, right? It involves the physical, it involves the mental capacities and faculties, and slowly through the process you rise through each level. And you rise to the goal, hopefully, of samadhi, but that can take many, many thousands and thousands and hundreds and thousands of lifetimes, right? Few lifetimes, possibly, right? But what is Bhakti Yoga? And why does Bhakti Yoga supersede or pass all of these other yogic systems? Because Bhakti Yoga is the most efficient way to get where we need to be, essentially. Prabhupada is saying that in this age, we have no hope of doing all these intense yogic practices. We have no capacity for that. But the only means, the Prabhupada, he says it's a waste of time. All the yogic practices, these other kinds, the Shastra says, especially in this age, it's a waste of time. The only means for elevation is the chanting of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, right? The practicality of Bhakti Yoga, the most efficient and practical way to get where you need to be. And yes, Bhakti Yoga is the highest process, but even in Bhakti itself, right, we see that there are sort of, you could say, gradations of processes, right? We know that there are 9 processes of devotional service, of performing Bhakti Yoga. But if you look through all of them, not all as easy as others, The highest, the Atmanivedana, total, complete surrender of body, mind, spirit, all of that. That's not so easy to just surrender, right? Surrender is there. Of course surrender is there. Everyone who is practicing devotional service is sincere and surrendered according to their capacity. But to be surrendered every day, all day, no, that's not so easily. And then, you look at another process, remembering. Remembering is a process. Also, that is hard on a daily basis, to constantly think of Krishna all the time, when there's so many things to do, so many responsibilities to meet, so many things that just distract you here, there, and everywhere, right? But remembering, yes, it's a sign of medication. Meditation, right? It's an indication that when you remember, you're meditating on someone, right? But Prabhupada is saying the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra is the Yuga Dharma, right? Hearing and chanting is the Yuga Dharma. But don't think that we can do these separately from all the other processes. Like, I'll just hear and I'll just chant. I don't have to remember, I don't have to worship, I don't have to surrender. No, I'll just hear and chant. No, right? We can't do them separate from the others, because without, hearing properly, you can't chant properly. I saw this quote of Srila Prabhupada's. When he was giving a Srimad Bhagavatam lecture in Mauritius, I think it was the 5th of October 1975. And Prabhupada is saying, just on this point of hearing and chanting, Prabhupada is saying, you have to hear and you have to understand. Then you can speak. Otherwise you will speak ridiculously. Right? So we cannot do one process in bhakti without the other process. They're all linked together. But yeah, this purport, Prabhupada is also presenting the contrast, right, of how yoga was practiced back in Satya Yuga, and the reasoning why yoga was practiced back in Satya Yuga. And in this day and age, the reasoning why people engage in like Hatha Yoga and Ashtanga Yoga, right? And that's how a lot of people start out, right? For their health, they're having some health issues, they want to get fit, they want to just improve something about themselves physically, emotionally, mentally, so they get into yoga. But then you see, the nature of Kali Yuga and all of these fruitive engagements, as Prabhupada is calling them, the unclean desires and such. And you look at, just like observe the yoga world today, right? It's not just Ashtanga Yoga or Hatha Yoga, there's like Kundalini Yoga, there's power yoga, there's hot yoga. I think that's yoga and some kind of sauna, if I'm not mistaken. Oh, and there's something called goat yoga. You go like to some outdoor location, and while you're doing like all of these different asanas and postures, these baby goats are just like crawling all over you and, climbing up, because apparently that's cute and relaxing, So you can see the consciousness of the age. Now, if you look at the consciousness of the age, what hope do we have of actually doing proper Ashtanga or Hatha Yoga? That's why the Shastras are saying it's a waste of time. You don't have the right foundation and knowledge to do anything. But we see from Maharaj Prithu's example that his use of pranayama, right, to control his mind and senses, allowed him to be completely free from desire for fruitive activity. Again, the intention behind why he used pranayama for his devotional service. So we can also understand that there is a space for things within the context of devotional service. And that is, one reason why the Bhagavatam is so important and why we should read and study the Bhagavatam every day. Because the entirety of the Bhagavatam, no matter what canto you go, no matter what is being discussed, everything is in the context of Krishna, in the context of devotional service, and it shows you how to bring everything back to Krishna, right? Whether you're reading about the hellish planets, or you're reading about Maharaj Prithu, you're reading later on about King Yayati, you're reading about all of these, there's that one part of the Bhagavatam where it's just names and names and names of all these descendants of all these kings, and but the purports of all of that, Prabhupada is bringing it back to Krishna, right? Everything has a space that can be related to Krishna, right? Even look at Prabhupada, his own example, right? Every day, without fail, no matter what the weather was or whatever, he took a walk. He did his morning walk, his famous morning walk. Why did he start taking a walk? Because he had a stroke, right? Early in the days, he had a stroke. I think it was the Memorial Day weekend or something. And that's a big thing in America. There was no doctors available. Eventually, they found some doctor, and I stand to be corrected, he was possibly like a little drunk, the doctor, right? He took one look at Prabhupada. But the one thing that doctor said was, Shri Shri Radha Radhanath ki jai, Shri Raj Govardhan ki jai, Shri Gaura Hari ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. The one thing the doctor said is that he needs exercise. He needs to take a walk every day. And I mean, the devotees could have been like, what is this drunk doctor saying? Prabhupada is a pure devotee, he doesn't need to do this, No, but Prabhupada took it seriously, right? And he took his morning walk every day. So again, there's a context for all of this to be used, because Prabhupada knew he had to take care of his health in order to preach, right? The context of devotional service. And another thing I think was interesting in this purport is that Prabhupada is obviously, yes, he's speaking about bhakti yoga, but there are elements where, we hear about spiritual knowledge, and we hear about, the becoming completely free from desires for fruitive activity. And I was thinking of it in the context of bhakti, of devotion. And then we know from the Shastra, it's said that, the personality Bhakti Devi, not my mother, but the personality Bhakti Devi, she has two sons, Jnana and Vairagya, knowledge and renunciation, right? But when we read this purport and we understand the result that Prithu Maharaj's practice brought him, that our practice, especially in this context of, becoming completely free from fruitive desires and all of that, sometimes we misunderstand this, becoming completely free of fruitive desire, right? And actually, the process of bhakti, of devotion, accompanied by the knowledge and the renunciation, actually needs to bring us to a space of cessation of desires, not suppression of desires. And when we read about Maharaj Prithu, we see that, right? He's completely peaceful, right? He's not denying anything or pushing anything aside, suppressing anything artificially. Naturally, through his practice of devotion, through his use of spiritual knowledge and through the renunciation that comes from that practice, his material or lower desires are put to rest naturally, right? And that's something we should understand, that if we have a desire for something, pretending it is not there won't make it go away. Actually, it'll just make it worse, like that, right? And that comes from the application of spiritual knowledge. When Prabhupada is speaking about the minds of those who are addicted to fruitive activity are always filled with unclean desires, we can understand it's because the majority of people in this world live from a space of no spiritual knowledge or understanding, right? We all have knowledge, whatever kind of knowledge that is, spiritual knowledge, material knowledge, whatever knowledge we have. The knowledge we have can be right or wrong, right? But we function in the world according to the knowledge we have, That's the way we work. And the knowledge that we have influences the desires we have. And the desires we have influence the actions we take, and the actions we take comes with results, right? So we can understand from that the level of knowledge that is available in the world is really not that much. It's not very good. It's not very conducive for anything spiritual in one sense. Because when your knowledge is not appropriate, your desires won't be appropriate. And that is why Prabhupada is emphasizing the unclean desires of those who engage in fruitive activities, because the knowledge they operate from, they work from, is not appropriate. So naturally their desires are not appropriate, their actions are not appropriate, and the results are not appropriate. And Prabhupada, this is a term that comes up very often in Prabhupada's purports, fruitive activities. What is fruitive activities? Basically, a fruitive activity means that by my own endeavor, by my own action, by my own work, I can achieve a particular desired result. By my own effort that I put in, I'm going to work hard, I'm going to do what I need to do, and I'm going to get something out of that, right? And so often, right, we see that when we achieve things, maybe just like in material life, no, it's because of my hard work, right? If you working in an office, you want to join a particular department, you want a promotion. No, I put in the effort. I put in the long hours. I made the sacrifices, right? And I did this, right? My endeavor, right? But when it comes to spiritual life, that's the thinking we have to give up, right? My own endeavor, by my own endeavor only, by the hard work that only I will put in will I get this. And we come to spiritual life with this mood, and we bring it in, this, in one sense, egotistical thinking, right? By my hard work, my own endeavor, I'm going to do it myself. It's a very individualistic idea, right? And especially when it comes to chanting, we could say that, it's something, even as devotees, we don't fully appreciate or understand the value of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, right? Think about it, we're all very busy people. We all have things to do. But the first thing, I know in my case, I'm not sure about everyone else, the one thing I'll push aside for later is the japa. It's like, no, I have all these things to do. Okay, I'll chant later. Let me do all these things that I need to do. And then, at later tonight, I'll catch up. I'll do something tomorrow. I'm not busy. I'll just catch up. It's fine, right? But Prabhupada is speaking about basically the only means of elevation is the chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, right? That if we just chanted properly, there would be nothing lacking in our life in any way. We wouldn't have to put in this huge endeavor, this hard work, right? And that's another thing that we can take from maybe what Prabhupada is saying is, how can I be, we were talking initially about spiritual intention, right? So maybe we can take it a step further. How can I be more intentional with my chanting, with my engagement with the Hare Krishna Mahamantra? Not even just chanting japa, but Sankirtan is many different things. The holy name, right? How can I be more intentional with my engagement with the Hare Krishna Mahamantra? Because that is the form of the Lord in this age of Kali Yuga. Krishna is non-different from his name, right? But Prabhupada is speaking further about the people of this age and their desire to dominate material nature, right? They think that by dominating material nature, they will get where they need to be, right? But actually, this desire for dominating material nature is ignorance. Again, it comes back to the fact that they're not operating from a space of spiritual knowledge, right? How can you dominate material nature? If you just stop and think about it for a second, that is the Lord's energy. Maya Devi is the Lord's energy, right? So we think we can dominate material natures, and we think we can fulfill all of our desires. So we engage in the fruitive activities from this space. I will show the material nature who's boss, No. And then a whole lot of purification comes and you wonder what happened, right? But I was thinking, this idea also of engagement in fruitive activities as such, it relates also to this last Monday's class that Srila Prabhupada was giving. If you haven't heard it, it's nice. Please go back and listen to it. It's a very interesting lecture. Prabhupada is speaking from the first canto, and he's speaking on the prayers of Queen Kunti. This particular lecture was in Mayapur. And Prabhupada is speaking, the verse that day was 1:826, one of the prayers of Queen Kunti. And that's the verse that ends Tvam Akinchana Gochara, right? So Akinchana Gochara is the name of Krishna, which basically means that Krishna can only be approached by those, in short, I'm shortening it, he can only be approached by those who are materially exhausted, right? And in that lecture, Prabhupada is giving this example of, like, I think this is like 1964 or 68, 64 I think. And in the lecture, Prabhupada is saying, no, 50 years prior, Prabhupada was at the Howrah train station, right? And he was traveling somewhere. And he's just looking around and he's watching this passenger who, he's like really, really poor or like almost homeless, destitute, and he's traveling somewhere. But this passenger has got his luggage with him. And his luggage is basically half burnt firewood and like random other knickknacks that just like they have no value, it just looks like random nonsense, And Prabhupada is saying that, look, he was thinking, look, even the most insignificant person thinks he has something, and that, Prabhupada is saying, is material disease. That you could be, and if you see this, you see like homeless people and they're dragging around their little, little cardboards and plastics and all of this random assortment. And like, no, these are my things, right? And they're doing it on that level, and those of us who are like materially more well off, we do it on a bigger level with all of our possessions. But Prabhupada is saying, look, this, you think you have something, this is material disease, right? And Prabhupada goes on to further say that ideally we should voluntarily become akinchana. Voluntarily become akinchana, right? That if we chase kinchana, Prabhupada in that verse, he says kinchana means something. If you chase kinchana, then maybe you'll find your comfort, maybe you'll find the big home, the bed, the comfort. You'll find all of that, but Krishna will be lost to you, right? So Prabhupada is saying that actually to be nishkinchana means someone who has lost everything, is actually very, very nice. Because it's from that platform where we can come to Krishna and say, I've lost everything. Please let me surrender unto you. I've been I mean, that lecture touched on many different points as well, but Prabhupada is saying that when we come to the space of nishkinchana, that I've lost everything, my family doesn't care about me, my friends are not interested, my work is not satisfying. When we come to that and then we come to Krishna, that is when we can really surrender everything and actually find him. Yeah. And that is the potency of chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, that we don't understand or we don't always believe, even as devotees, right? That when we chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, it can fulfill the desires of everyone, right? My Guru Maharaj told me this once. It was, I think, during COVID, and it was like a Zoom meeting with like some South African disciples and things, and he was talking about Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan movement and the glories of chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. And I can't remember the question I asked him, but he just told me, can you just let the mantra manage your life? And I always think about that just let the Hare Krishna Mahamantra manage my life, right? And I always wondered, what does that mean? And I try and meditate. I don't know if I'm any closer to figuring out what that means, let the mantra manage my life. But I was thinking about it, like recently I started a new job. It's like almost 2 months in that, and it's a very stressful environment. Obviously it's very new, and I work for like an overseas company, and I interact with people a lot on the phone, so sometimes it's very stressful, and there's a lot of anxiety that's currently happening. But there's a lot of time where I sit idle, like I'm on the line but like no one's there, but I have to just be on the line waiting. And then I realized, okay, this is like I have like random spots of blank time. And I can't read because you never know when a call is coming, and your reading just gets interrupted. But what has become my best friend is a clicker. So I'm just like, okay, I have this time now, let me just chant. So hopefully that's one step closer to understanding what let the mantra manage your life means. That actually in every space I am in every service I am in every relationship, in every engagement, where is the holy name? And that is what the point is, that if the only means for elevation is the chanting of the holy name, the chanting of the holy name should be in every aspect of my life, right? And that's the thing, we have to become more intentional, that is the holy name, is Krishna's name in every part of my life. If it's not, how can I bring it to that, right? Because that's what Sankirtan means, right? A complete glorification, which includes every other endeavor. Everything is included in the Sankirtan movement, in the glorification of the Lord, right? But still that is something that is hard for even us to accept, right? And maybe it's that because, we don't want our eyes to be opened. Because it's very comforting to sit with your desires and your hard work and your endeavor. When you surrender, you have nothing. It's a very vulnerable place to be in, and that's not necessarily something that's very nice to feel. You feel very open, very exposed to Krishna. There's nothing. But that's the thing, fruitive activities ask for your endeavor and your hard work and your blood, your sweat, your tears. But the chanting of the holy name doesn't ask for that. It asks actually for the complete opposite. It just asks for your surrender and your intention and your willingness to try, the contrast. And then what does Krishna say about fruitive activities ultimately in the Bhagavad Gita? That they leave us in doubt. Our constant engagement. In the 4th chapter, he says that, the doubts that arise from your heart out of ignorance, he tells Arjuna, just slash them with the weapon of knowledge, right? The weapon of knowledge. But again, this verse and even yesterday's verse, basically it shares that devotional service is meant to satisfy Krishna. And that is all. That's the only engagement or reasoning behind devotional service, the satisfaction of Krishna. And the only thing we should actually expect from this engagement in devotional service is the Lord's mercy. We shouldn't go in expecting other things. And even if, we cannot seemingly find the Lord's mercy, you take that as the Lord's mercy. That, okay, you have some reasoning behind what you're doing, and I'll take it as that, right? And if we think of Srila Prabhupada, right, this point of only expecting the Lord's mercy and nothing else, right? Think of what Srila Prabhupada went through just to reach the point of arriving in America, right? Just to the point of getting off the ship. What did Prabhupada go through, right? The printing presses, the back to Godhead, the walking in the sun himself, trying to sell the Back to Godhead magazines, the heat stroke. I think he was attacked by a bull, wasn't he? It's right. Getting the ticket and no support from his god brothers, the heart attacks on the Jaladuta, arriving, just to the point of arriving in America. Like, that was like, I would have given up like halfway before that, Like when I couldn't find the ticket, I would have given up. Like, no, I tried, it's fine, right? But what he went through just to arrive in America. And it's not like when Prabhupada landed, he got off the boat and he's like, okay, now I deserve success based on everything I've been through, Krishna. Like, come on now, where's the temple? It's like you should have manifested everything, right? Everything I went through to get here, like, okay, what's happening? No, what did Prabhupada say? What did Prabhupada say? Make me dance. Make me dance. That's the only thing you should say, Rukmini. From now until July 12th. It's the only thing you should say. Make me dance, right? That's what Prabhupada said. Like, Lord, I don't know why you brought me here. And like, if you logically think about it, for those of us who don't understand Prabhupada, that's a bit concerning. You went on a trip and you don't know who you're going to meet, what the outcome is, what you're going to do. No, but Prabhupada said, Lord, I don't know why you've brought me here, but you do have some reason, so just make me dance as you like. That's a scary thing, right? And maybe that's why we don't want to engage with the holy name in that way, because we're afraid of what that would bring out for us, right? But if we think there's the pastime of Mrigari, the hunter, right? So he's this hunter who half kills animals, and that's like even worse than killing them, because they're half alive, half dead, constantly in pain. It's like. So anyway, Narada, he meets Narada Muni, right? And Narada like instructs him, and he takes to Narada. And what's Narada's first instruction to him? Kill them fully, okay. Yeah, actually that's break your bow as a disciple. Right, okay. The first instruction is to break your bow. And Mrigari is like, how am I going to live? How am I going to survive? This bow is the thing that keeps me alive, right? But this pastime is again emphasizing this point that we don't live through fruit of engagement as devotees. When we come to this platform of bhakti, we live by mercy, right? So Narada says, just trust me. I've told you to worship the Lord. Just do what I'm telling you to do. Worship the Lord, right? And Mrigari is like, you sure? Just do this. Are you sure? He's like, yeah, just trust me. Just do this. So Mrigari says, okay, I'll listen to you then. I'm putting my faith in you. He breaks his bow. He does what Narada tells him to do. And then slowly what happens? The word spreads. And then everyone's like, you know what? I heard there was a hunter who became a sadhu. Let's go and see. Let's go and see if it's true or not, right? And everyone goes to flock and look and see if this is true. And they're so impressed by what they see that they just, they bring all these donations for Mrigari. All of these different kinds of fruits and vegetables and grains and like all of these things. And eventually, like, Narada Muni comes back to check on him, like, how are you doing? What's happening? And Mrigari is like, I just have one problem now, that I have so much of things. So can you please stop sending so much? Because I know it's because of you. Because I'm following your instructions that I'm being carried in this way. Can you stop sending so much? I don't know what to do with all of this, right? And that's the thing. We need to accept that when we become devotees, the life we are now choosing, no one forced you to become a devotee. I don't know what they told you when you bought the book, but it was your choice to buy the book and eat the Simply Wonderful and come to the Sunday program and join the temple, right? But when you choose to become devotee, you are choosing to undertake a life that is pleasing to Krishna. Right? You made that choice. So Krishna is going to put you in those circumstances to bring that purity out. That you need to live a life of engagement, of spiritual intention, as we were speaking about earlier, right? And it's through this that we see that Krishna is active in our life, right? But we need to become awake enough to see that, and that is the austerity we undertake in this age. The process of devotional service, of chanting the holy name, of engaging with the holy name, should be purifying in that way, for us to see how Krishna is active in our life. And we see that when we live a life of spiritual intention, especially in relation to Krishna, then we see from the Bhagavatam verse, what Nashta Prayeshu Bhadreshu, that's from the invocation of the Bhagavatam, Nashta Prayeshu Bhadreshu, that all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed. Right? Nashta Prayeshu Bhadreshu. This is what engagement in spiritual life brings to us, or just coming to Krishna, or just chanting his holy name, right? And just a final point I'll end on, because when I read this purport and I read about pranayama and this breathing and stuff, the first thing that actually came to my mind was there's this point from Jewish mysticism, right, regarding the name of God. So in Hebrew, the name of God is Yahweh, right? In Hebrew, it's spelled YHWH. There's no vowels, right? So when we look at the word as it's spelled in Hebrew, YHWH, it mimics, or it represents, breathing, inhaling and exhaling. And think about it for a moment. If you say that word YHWH without the vowels, it's like, right? It mimics the sound of breath, right? Inhale, exhale, right? And like in Jewish mysticism, they say, like, I think this is in the Bible, that God breathed life into Adam, right? So I thought that was also an interesting point, that, in Jewish mysticism, what they're actually saying through this name of God that mimics breath is that God is present in every breath we take. And I thought that was something very nice, that Krishna is present in every breath we take. Yes, he lives in the heart as the Paramatma. But are we conscious of the fact that Krishna is present in every breath we take, in every interaction we have in life, in every experience we're going through, that Krishna is there through every breath of everything? And I think that's a nice place to start being more spiritually intentional. As Maharaj Prithu, we read that it's through his severe austerity and his intention that he becomes steadfast in his spiritual life. So steadfastness comes from being intentional, being disciplined in this way. So I'll end there. Any corrections, comments? Just wait. The online devotees must hear you. Yeah.
I guess it's more of a comment, but I like the point that you made about Mrigrari breaking the bowl, because it was for his livelihood. But then I was thinking that there's so many things that we feel our life depends on. You know, and it's not just food and water. And, you know, for him, breaking his bow meant like quitting his job, or, you know, or even maybe like, you know, if you're a typist, cutting off your finger, or like there was no chance, you know, to continue. And many things that we hold on to, and it doesn't have to just be livelihood, but for the sake of life, like relationships, you know, patterns, whatever it is, we hold on to as a safety net. And so when Krishna's asking us to break the bow, it's kind of like a really poignant moment. You know, can you break the bow? You know, Krishna asks, and he is asking, you know, can we break the bow? You know, what do you do if you're not sure you can break the bow? Oh, that's the question.
Oh, what you do if you're not sure you can break the bow? Can you just put the bow down? You don't have to break it right now. I mean, Krishna, that's another thing I was thinking about. You know, Krishna's not really the punishing type. You know, this was, I was showing Madhurya, this was something, we were watching a video of Achyuta Gopi, right? And she was speaking on this point that, you know, Krishna is, you know, the process is loving devotional service, right? So why would a God who is like all about loving devotional service punish you? You know, it's like, it's actually, you know, and that's the thing with your breaking the bow. Even if you can't break the bow, Krishna won't punish you, but you'll punish yourself, right? And you see that even that question, when you brought it up, that what if you can't break the bow, that guilt came out already, right? Krishna, that's right, he's Bhavagrahi Janardana. He sees the intention behind everything. You know, even the devotee that we are so annoyed with because they're so stubborn, but they have the intention for doing what they're doing. Krishna sees that intention, you know. And ultimately that's what he sees, that, okay, you can't do it completely, but what are you doing? And I'll focus on that, right? You take one step towards Krishna, it takes 1,000, 10,000. 10? Okay, 10,000, whatever it is. Right, we're using a demigod calculations here, right? That he'll take those steps towards you, right? The Vamana steps, yeah. So as long as for me, it's like, as long as I'm at least completely honest with Krishna, then it's okay. Like, I'm really trying, Krishna, but right now, this is what I can do. But I know that you will carry me through everything. And you'll take me where I need to be. You know? Yeah. Okay. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaura Premanande. Hare.